it was really, really beautiful, and it felt like this was the way to get beyond the sort of. I always had a stumbling block with the skin, because if you chose like Caucasian, then you're speaking to that kind of race, and if you're and then if you do it black, then it's automatically speaking to a particular. So
it's more universal.
Exactly. I tried to find this, or I saw it as that kind of solution to a more universal self. And so this is the male and female, or just the partners that are in love with each other, and yet they are encased in the impermanence of the flesh, while working through them in their hearts and in their minds as this infinite bond that goes beyond the flesh. And perhaps up above them, someone pointed out that hey, look, Alex, you see those two infinity loops together in their heart and their head? Those form an 88. And your daughter was born in 1988, right? That's her up above you. And so I thought, that's really interesting, you know. This was painted in 1983.
Yes.
So 2 double eights again, and we got copulating. This is the kind of... as Wilhelm Reich used to call it, the overlapping of orgone energy streams.
Yes.
And so they have a, this feminine and masculine charge, or this, the inner and the outer of things going into things. And they're basically spiralic forms that interlock like this, you see. And you can see them on your thumb, you can see them all over the place. And these, so here we've got these kinds of little vortices that spin off to the souls, and those that are interested in incarnation or are signing up for incarnation will come through here. I talk about a kind of cellular memory that I think we all have. In my study of sacred spaces at Chartres Cathedral, Allison and I went there, and they want to have sacred space that is identified with the divine feminine. And it's like the womb, you know? And so I thought, well, why is that so effective, you know? And then I was thinking that, you know, the way that we start our physical existence is as separate sex cells, right? We start as the ovum and the sperm. And that's our first physical existence, is separate, right? So we're separate from our possibility of existence for a brief time. And then by some miracle, you know, this one particular sperm has been on a pilgrimage toward the divine feminine, you know, and our very physical existence depends on the success of that pilgrimage. And so it goes back to a deep cellular memory, I think, and makes great sense to have sacred spaces identified with the divine feminine. So praying here, you've got the light in the heart and the light in the head that is emanating out in all these prayers of all the different world wisdom traditions. It's the same light that is shared by all the wisdom traditions. It's the light of love, you know, and wisdom. And at the core, there's a mystic unity that the traditions all share. Theologue, the union of human and divine consciousness, weaving the fabric of space and time in which the self and its surroundings are embedded. So that's definitely recounting an experience that I had wearing a mindfold, which is a light-tight blindfold with earplugs. and staring into these infinite perspective grids. I was on a high-dose LSD experience, and it seemed like I was fabricating the space that I was surrounded by. And of course, that's true. We're all fabricating the space that we're surrounded by with our minds. I mean, right?
Well, it's interesting because when we last week we talked with Richard Aniskevich, about optical issues and perception. So even there, we talk a lot about, with a lot of the op art in this exhibition, that none of us seems to see things in the same way. So obviously our minds are doing something in the shaping of what we see.
Absolutely. They provide the ultimate context for our reality, And therefore, the more expansive and the more evolved the consciousness is, the more connected and more respectful and honoring of all the different traditions it becomes. And that's precisely the kind of expansion of awareness and heightening of awareness that is crucial at this phase in the human experiment. So
this is the amazing painting that we have on view in the exhibition, The Journey of the Wounded Healer.
I'm feeling a bit like a wounded healer. My wife and I were in a car accident. You'll see pictures later, but our spine was literally shattered. And so here we've got the first panel has a kind of DNA descent. The descent of man in the Darwinian sense, and the evolutionary chain of being unfolds through all the different creatures as we evolve then to the human creature, who is somehow feeling trapped in this dizzying vortex of a materialist world. And so in the central panel, they go through a kind of shamanic splatter dance with opening up to the dimensions on many, many different levels. You've got planetary forces and cosmic forces, molecular and atomic forces. You've got these galactic kinds of swirls around there, but you've also got mysterious beings like the three-headed snake, the alchemical kind of snake that perhaps is weaving together a new kind of self out of this mess.
And the snake you see is body, mind, spirit.
Absolutely. A new integrating kind of force, a reorienting kind of force. So now somehow the self has reassembled, and it's more solarized and more Apollonian to the Dionysian kind of meltdown previous. And now the serpents are a kind of caduceus-like balanced thing, and they're kind of symbolic of the balanced unconscious, and the superconscious is the flying eye above there. So they're climbing the mountain, 1 foot in the world, but 1 foot toward the healed future. So this is an archetype that I think is of profound significance for the 21st century. Yes, of course, we can see that we're wounded, but the question is, will we mature and become healers,
Mm-hmm. And I think art can play an enormous role in that, and your work in particular, along with many of the works in this exhibition, I've seen people respond to them. I've seen how people feel uplifted, and that in itself is a form of healing.
Absolutely. I feel like sacred art has always had a healing function. That's because the most healing experience that anyone can have is a mystical experience. Mm-hmm. And all the doctors who are doing the psychedelic research are basically proving the same thing, mm-hmm. that once you have contact with the divine, you have a sense of a new sacralized or divinized sense of the world. You have a transfigured approach to the everyday world that you live in as a sacred world, and you want to honor that. You want to respect it as much as possible. So there's new possibilities that come in the wake of these awakening experiences.
And this painting is another one that deals with healing.
And so here Allison is healing the blind, who is myself there. And she's accompanied also by a kind of Shroud of Turin type ghostly Christ figure in the back, which unites them somehow. There's a kind of love circuit that happens through a spiritual force, and the laying on of hands. You can see that there are spirit hands that are are working with the healer. And here's that kind of bioelectromagnetic, psycho-spiritual soup of consciousness that the baby and mother are surrounded with. And you can also see the milk kind of drizzling into the digestive system of the baby. But there's also a Madonna and child kind of archetype there, you know. And so here then the Holy Family, you know, is going through their embryological bloom, where the jewel in the lotus is literally depicted up there, connected like a spiritual kite to the fetus. The soul is symbolized by this kind of lotus, this glowing lotus in the heart.
Now we come to the Chapel of the Sacred Mirrors, which you began work on in 1979, and then you finished the cycle of paintings in 1989. We'll look at them in a moment. And then for a time, beginning in 2004, and I had the great privilege of visiting the chapel there in Chelsea, in New York, and we have a couple of shots here, the entrance and a view into one of the galleries. And I'm just going to kind of move through these, and maybe as we move through, you can tell people what this cycle is about.
Well, the Sacred Mirrors was inspired by Allison and named by Allison as a series. And so it was based on a visionary experience that we had, particularly if you stop right there for a second. You've got the... you can go back one. You've got a sense of how the human figure becomes this more psychic energy system with the subtle energies, and then melts down a little bit the identity with the body, and then the next go over to the next. So here you've got the universal mind lattice, and this was kind of one of the most important psychedelic experiences I ever had. And my wife and I were tripping in bed with blindfolds on and entered into this space where we had melted down into one of these balls of light, and we were interconnected omnidirectionally without end to every other being and thing in the universe that was one of these balls of light. And the light was love. And it was so beautiful. It was like you had awakened from the body and found yourself in a much more fundamental state. And it was beyond birth and death or sex of any kind. And so after coming back, Allison confirmed that she had been in the exact same space at the same time. And because we made drawings of it that were very similar. And so we called it the Universal Mind Lattice, and we started to find other references and other visions that confirmed that other people had been to a similar place. So it gave me a lot more sense of the credibility of these heavenly worlds, and that had been described in mystical literature, but I'd never actually visited them, you know. But they're very visitable, and the visions of millions of people prove that, you know, it can happen time and again. So then it goes into more of a Tibetan-influenced kind of void, clear light, and then the Avalokitesvara, a bit of active compassion, the Christ again, the Sophia, and then to the last sacred mirror, which is called Spiritual World, and it has a radiant kind of heart sun there with the name God in the center of it, just so that people get the message, just to see themselves as reflections of the divine, and their world. So, when our daughter was born in 1988, I had a vision, and it was in Sacred Mirrors, and it was published in 1990, and the Beastie Boys used it in one of their albums, and then after 9/11, somebody emailed me, and they said, Alex, did you know that there were like 2 airplanes next to the Twin Towers? There was someone who looked a bit like Bush standing next to a dick, embracing a terrorist. So it kind of freaked me out a little bit. But it was because I hadn't remembered any of that stuff. But there it is.
Mm. Painting is prophecy.
Who knows? Painting is, that there were other even more freaky things of the artists who died in that, accident, the 9/11. But I won't go into
Getting back,
that.
well, just before we move on, though, to the idea of the prophetic power of what is painted, the Surrealists actually had a phrase that they talked about prophecy and divination. And here's an example, I think, of what they were referring to, the idea that somehow when you make the mark, there can be a prophetic form of truth, maybe, or of eventual truth that comes from the making of the mark, in the way that a dream may be prophetic of something. And I once interviewed an American surrealist named Fritz Bultmann who talked about that with me.
Well, I think that art is the collective dream.
Yes.
It's pretty clearly these are gifts of the visionary state. They're not things you go about thinking you're going to do. They're just like there's a kind of command that they be done. And I also wanted to find a way to illustrate a powerful birth, a powerful and spiritual birth. If we could celebrate our own Buddha nature, or our own divine radiance. So here's the mother as a birthing Buddha, through her compassion giving birth to a divine child. So this is everyone has this element of the of existence, and there's the strange parentheses in the screen that goes from her own birth to her own death up at the top. And the Tibetan syllables are kind of flying everywhere, going through here. So as the being incarnates, here's the disincarnating, I guess, as the ectoplasmic wisp of the soul is extruded out through the aperture of Brahman and kind of goes down, snaking down the tunnel toward the white light. The symbolism of the eye is just to use the nature of the eye as a portal of awareness, so it becomes expanded awareness when you mount a lot of eyes together in a Jungian sense, I guess.
In that you've, in a sense, been studying death and painting about death almost all your life that we've seen here in this presentation. What do you think death is? I mean, what do you think the experience of death is?
Well, I think it's getting back to basics, and dropping the body. And so you had your shot, it was your
do you believe in reincarnation?
Your spin. Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, there was a painter named Jean Delville, who was a Belgian symbolist painter, and Andrew Gonzalez, who's here tonight, I think, is a great fan of Delville as well. Perhaps we both feel similar about this, but when I started looking at his works, I started getting a really weird vibe that I had painted them. Like that feels so familiar that, I remember painting that. And so after a few of those senses of real uncanniness in relation to his work, I found out that he had written this thing called The Mission of Art, The New Mission of Art. And so I found it, I just wanted to republish it and say, this guy is really important. But then I started reading it, and all of his references were they were definitely not contemporary reference points, and it didn't make sense and stuff. And so then I came across a passage where he said that he believed that an artist could reincarnate to accomplish a goal that had not been accomplished, and been finished. And so interesting. And so I rewrote The Mission of Art as a new kind of, but inspired by Delville.
Yes.
And he was one of the first theosophist artists, and one of the great family of visionaries, that are underseen and underknown.
Well, we'll have to correct that in the coming years.
I think that would be awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. Tantra, okay, well, this is just one of those trippy experiences of the meltdown. Once again, it's looking at the nature of love. It's looking at the nature of polarities. It's looking at the nature of how can a self fuse to another self. And in the act of love, and as we were noting before, conception, this is possible, that a being becomes one through this act of unity of the heart. And so this was just a portrayal as frictionless a download as possible from a vision that I had. Transfiguration. This is a peculiar piece because I had a dream that I was painting a piece called Transfiguration, and it had this kind of ball at the bottom, ball at the top, very Ellsworth Kelly,
Yeah.
And then there was a body slap in the center of it that was kind of an axis mundi. Very simple idea, And so I had been thinking a lot. All that year I'd been giving actually slide talks about the body in relationship to divine light. It was like, how do you unite these? And the sacred art of all the different traditions handles it in a different way. Many solarize the beings in different ways and stuff. And so then Terence McKenna, I can say it now because he's dead, he sent us some DMT, and my wife and I had never tried it before. And DMT is dimethyltryptamine, and it's a really fast psychoactive substance that you can smoke. And you get the height of tripping within about, like 30 seconds. And then after about 5 or 10 minutes, you're back to ground zero, practically. And so it's a really rocket ship to the hyperspace. And so we sampled it, and as I inhaled, then I kind of felt this elevation and increasing transparency and then popping into this really bright realm. So I got to see all the facets of this kaleidoscopic kind of mandalic hyper mind sphere that was surrounding me, like a chandelier, like a big being inside of a disco ball that was, always changing and glistening in a diamond-like beautiful geometric way. And then I was looking through my transparent body, which had become more grid and fiery white light kind of like. And there were hovering jewels in each of the chakras. So I could see I had become the transfiguree of the painting that I had dreamed about earlier in the week. And I could check the colors and see the different kinds of things like, oh yeah, man, I got to remember this, and it was, so it was a great confirmatory experience. Then I knew I had to, kind of paint this thing. It wound up being 13 feet tall with this gigantic frame that I built. So
Let's try to move through the rest a little more quickly
Fast,
so we
sorry.
can leave time, just so we can leave time for some questions.
You're right, sorry.
So, no, I know, it's wonderful. So this is, I'm loving it myself. This is Nature of the Mind, and it's a huge altar, and let's show people the sections of it. Could you just maybe briefly tell us the iconography in these sections?
The wanderer finding spiritual dawn, and that life is a path, meets death on the road, takes a teaching from it, and begins to get in contact with the guru.
Okay. And then this is the central?
The meltdown of identity from the physical and opening to a non-dual interconnectedness with all beings and things, assisted by the Tibetan Buddhist deities.
And then the 3 panels on the right.
Taking the Vajra that the vision kind of snaps into your own heart, and then bringing it back to the world.
And then these are a series of drawings, we'll just show them, that led to this painting here.
The vision crystal that's, interconnectedness of all worldviews in the God's eye.
A great mandala image. And then this is an important work, I know, for you.
Well, it kind of deconstructs the spiritual mechanics of painting, with the connection with the old masters and things like that. For me, Delville is over on the left side of the painting. See that little head over there?
Who are the other figures in the
The other
background?
figures, you've got Michelangelo on the other side of the swirl there, and then next to him is Van Gogh. And then you've got Frida Kahlo, and then in the corner, Hieronymus Bosch. Underneath Hieronymus Bosch, you've got Rembrandt. And next to Rembrandt, you've got William Blake in the center there. And then next to him, the other bald chap is Pavel Chilichev.
Oh, Chilichev, yes.
And
Yes.
so these are mentors for me.
This is, in a sense, your lineage.
The mastermind group, in a way, that is always inspiring me. And so then Delville's on the other side, and the ally of the soul there that is the real master, is the directing angelic force that you're working for, that you're the conduit of. So you get these divine inspirations that funnel through in the light, and that it comes out through the energy centers along the spine, and they're connected with the colors that you're weaving into your art as well. So, but there's also the shadow is ever lurking behind him. If he stops working, I think he's going to get bit in the ass. So planetary consciousness meets cosmic consciousness through human consciousness, melting into the white light, the source of all creative webs of existence, non-existence. The cosmic Christ, it's like when Krishna reveals his divine form to Arjuna on the battlefield, and so we all have this cosmic body as well. This is the cosmic Christ, the universal beings that are. Consciousness is the symbolism of the eye and the golden light, and then the Milky Ways are all cosmic dust. So consciousness and cosmic dust is what we are, and when we stare into the eyes of the beloved, we get to see our oneness sometimes. And then this is an ayahuasca experience opened me up into this realm of complete interconnectedness. This is only one layer of an endless web of these sort of Mobius heads going from one layer to another. It's a net of being. And so inside of all of those different universes are different universes. And it all goes on infinitely. So.
And interestingly enough, it parallels the scientific ideas about string theory and the interconnectedness and one universe leading to another.
Well, this is coming through the human lens, so hence the anthropic kind of Godhead element to it. But it's an acknowledgement of that because I think it's important to bring that into our sacred spaces.
And speaking of sacred spaces,
so this is, after having that vision of the net of being, I had a new vision of the temple that we want to build, the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors. So this is kind of a fractal architecture where you've got these heads creating the shape of the temple itself. And so there's little temple shapes that go around 12 lotus petals there. And they are altars to all the different wisdom traditions. And then it points from the worldwide traditions to the sort of universal wisdom that is represented at the dome and the top and all the angelic architecture and stuff, and that it implies that there's a being to nature, and that nature creates humans. It's like nature or the cosmic force creates love, creates humans, creates creativity, So this is a building that we would like to build, and we bought 40 acres in upstate New York to accomplish that fact. Allison and I and a group of dedicated artists for many years have been running the chapel, now recently a church, and so we want to build sacred space. That's our mission. Over the next year, we're going to be raising funds and building out the exhibition hall there on the property, which will always house visionary art, and it will house the collection for now until we raise the funds to build the final chapel in the heart of the land.
And this is Allison's work. If you want to just say a brief word about this order-chaos duality work here?
Absolutely. Allison's work is based on the same visionary experience that I had back at the Universal Mind Lattice, and she created this system of chaos, order, and secret writing as her sort of trinity of factors. And the secret writing, to me, is the language of creativity. Chaos and order are part of all of our existence, all the time. They're major philosophical steps, and the communication between them is what the secret language communicates. And her work is on display in the chapel as well. So this is seraphic transport docking on the third eye. And so this was while taking ayahuasca down in Brazil and being able to close your eyes and check the colors. So you can see beings of various, you can see beautiful things.
Another Holy Family.
Yes, a new kind of interpretation of the Holy Family here. And you've got the child, the golden child, pointing toward the one, but with the planet in its heart, and radiant kind of halo out from them contains the symbolism from many of the different world's wisdom traditions. And so there's a threatening kind of being down below that is pointing below, basically saying it's hopeless, and ensnaring them to a little bit of degree, but the great hope is on the light and our connection to the one and our maturing as a species, and getting along better as a family, sharing the love,
Okay, and this is, well, you tell us what we're looking at.
Well, this is Dr. Albert Hoffman, and on his 100th birthday. He's the man who discovered LSD. So on his 100th birthday, Allison and I went to celebrate with thousands of people, and he signed the back of it, and it became a relic. And so it's on display at the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors. This is the miracle of his discovery. These are with some of the
dignitaries you've met.
Yes, the psychedelic trifecta, the Timothy Leary, Ram Dass, and Ralph Metzner, because they were the guys that wrote the psychedelic experience based on the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and he was the grad student, Ralph Metzner was, that was taking care of Leary and Richard Alpert, who became Ram Dass there. And at Harvard, and this was, I don't know, they had a long, strange trip of a life, and they're just wonderful people, just amazing. Now, not such a wonderful trip, but this was what happened to Allison and I just on March 7th.
It was actually 5 days before we opened Psychedelic.
Amazing, 5 days before that. Mm-hmm. Well, it was a major car accident, and I guess if the stone outcropping had been a few more degrees in the other direction, we wouldn't have made it at all. But we just have been finding out one of the people that came and picked us up was Angela Gray. You know, an angel that came and called 911. We were forced off the road by probably somebody who didn't even see us over there, a big gray SUV. And so then Allison and I have been healing. Prognosis is good for complete recovery, but we have to wear these guys for about 3 or 4 months. And there are turtle shells. And they hold your broken back in alignment. And
you both received the same injury, correct?
Yes, both of us our vertebrae shattered. Mine was burst into many pieces. And if it had been one vertebrae up, I'd be a paraplegic, but glory, hallelujah.
Thank goodness.
Thank you, God. I still have use of my limbs. Yeah. So you can see... Well, it's a thrill you don't get over, you know. It's like the high lasts for a long time of